All right, what I'd like to tie today is it's a fairly new style of streamer fly that was originated on the East Coast. The techniques to tie it are a combination or a blend of a number of different tyers philosophies and tyer styles. You'll see some of the Bob Popovich's school of tying, where you get the 360-degree filling in of the materials around the hook. You're going to see a fly that when it's wet, you still get a good bait fish profile. You're going to see some of the old space style with the peacock that we're going to use, and how it's wrapped around the hook, where it wraps around the hook, envelops it, and flows back towards the back of the hook. Where you see a lot of that is the old spay flies and the old Atlantic salmon flies. So the gentleman that originated these is a young man by the name of David Nelson, and I have to give him all the credit in the world, because he's a very talented young tyer, probably late 20s, and he just came up with this using all of these different styles. To get into the fly, and I've got a lot of different things up here, and I'll try to explain them as we go, but basically this fly is being tied on the East Coast for stripers, bluefish, tuna, anything that wants a bait fish. He also ties these up in shrimp patterns, and he also uses them as squid patterns, make beautiful squid patterns. Getting started, what I like to use is this is a Mustad 34-011. It's an extra long hook shank. I want the extra long hook shank to get my length, and I can tie this from, I think Steve told me, anywhere from 3 inches up to 9 inches, depending on the bait fish that you're trying to imitate. I'm going to attach my thread back here right above the barb of the hook, take a few wraps, and I'll stop between the barb here and the point of the hook. Excuse me, I hope my voice holds out, so we'll get through this. The thread I'm using is Ultra 140. I want to use a heavier thread because I'm going to have to torque down on this. I could also use a GPX or a gel spun thread, 3/0 from Danville, big fly thread from Uni if I wanted to go that route. As you'll see when we get to tying the peacock on here, you really want to torque down on that to hold everything down. There's a couple different ways to get these started. I'll do the easiest way because it confuses me at times. But basically we're going to build a foundation, and what I'm going to use for that foundation is bucktail, and we'll cut just a small clump of bucktail here. And I do a couple things a little bit different with my bucktail. Most notably is I use a glass tube, and that was a pretty good cigar at one time. But I keep these glass tubes from the cigars to stack my bucktail. I find that they work better than a regular stacker does to get the bucktail stacked. And then just hit it on your leg. Again, it's glass. I don't want to hit it on the tabletop because I probably have a mess. Plus, if you have to tie in the bedroom and somebody else is sleeping, you're not pounding on the table with a stacker. You got a little bit of glass here. All right, that's pretty well stacked. I don't know if you can see that or not, but for my purposes, it's pretty well stacked. Now, the length is going to be determined by the size hook. This is a 1/0 hook. And depending on the length of fly that you want, you can tie your bucktail in at that point. We'll just pick a spot here and go ahead and tie it in. And I'll use about 4 or 5 wraps to cinch it down and tie it in. I want it to come straight off the back of the hook shank. Then I'll come in here, cut that bucktail off at an angle, and we'll cover that up. I'll go ahead and use a little bit of Flex cement. I'm not a real big glue person, But for the type of fish that you're going after with these flies, I would recommend a little bit of Flexament on there to try to keep it from falling apart. Now the next thing I'm going to use is a pair of saddle hackles, and these are just off of a very inexpensive saddle that I had dyed for me by a friend of mine in Michigan. Again, these are about $5 a piece, so you're not going to spend a lot of money for materials to tie these. I want the tail to be just a little bit longer than the bucktail, so I've got them measured. Come in here with my fingers. We'll cut them off. And then I'm going to line the stems up, and I'll come in on either side of the stem, and I'll trim some fibers on each side of the stem here. All right, now I want to tent these over the bucktail. In other words, I don't want them coming straight down the sides. I'm going to tent them, and the bucktail is going to support that tent over the back of the fly. So simply, instead of tying these in at 9 and 3, I'm going to try to tie them in about 10:30 and 1:30, and I'll tie them in one at a time. And I forgot to tell you, if you got any questions, stop me, because I get going and I get in my own little world here. I'm tying them splayed. I'm tying them concave to concave and tented. You may not be able to see that, but I want them tented, and I want that right down the backbone of the hook. I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay. All right. Now, if I was wanting a fly to be even longer, I could take another pair of saddle hackles and tie them out on the side of this, maybe a grizzly saddle, and extend that out as far as I wanted it to give it a little contrast. I'd use a grizzly, you know, something longer and something maybe a little darker that the bucktail and the other saddle hackle would support. For expediency's sake, we'll move to the next step. For the body, you can use chenille, and there's a lot of different stuff out there right now. This is a product called Ice Dub Chenille, which is ice dubbing and a couple other little products that are wound around a core, and simply tie them in right at this point. Use a soft loop, tie it in, catch it, and then we'll advance our thread forward to where we want the body to stop. Now we'll just simply wrap this forward, and for those that are going to get on YouTube, if this hits YouTube and say he doesn't use his rotary vise properly. I learned how to tie before rotary vices were out, so I still tend to do things the old-fashioned way, and whether that's right or whether that's wrong is immaterial. But I choose to do it that way because it's easier for me. All right, now I have my body. So what I'm going to do at this point in time, I'm going to come just a little bit forward with my thread, get some more goop here, and slather it on there, I guess is the best word to use. Let me get that out of the way.